And now our next panelist, our first panelist, and also moderator, Dr. Ashraf Selim. Miriam, how do you put this on?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really glad and honored to be among you here, our famous archaeologists and Egyptologists. And I would like to thank the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and special thanks to Dr. Zahi Hawass, who is really behind the starting of the scientific scanning and DNA studies of the royal mummies. And also I would like to thank very much the ARCE and the organizing committee, who really did a wonderful job here. So happy to be here. So I know that maybe science and medicine is just a new evolving recently what we call the paleo science, paleo meaning the ancients. And this is a new evolving science. And this session we will deal with and discuss with our eminent professors in medicine, different branches and different objects. And we will be discussing what we achieved on examining King Tutankhamun. My presentation would be on the, as you can see, the title, How CT, what called Computed Tomography, Unveiled the Secrets of King Tutankhamun. And no. Sure. Okay. So let's first start with an introduction. I will first start with a quick introduction on the means of mummification that from the scientific picture. And again, we all know that Tutankhamun is a very famous king, boy king, and as you can see, he became the king at the age of 9 and died mysteriously at the age of 19. Of course, there are many legends about the curses. Death shall come on swift wings to him that disturbs the peace of the king. I mean, wow, anybody who comes in there, okay, he has to stop. But anyhow, as Dr. Zahi Hawass yesterday mentioned to us many incidents about that, most of them were just coincidence. Anyhow, many means were developed and improved over the years for the mummification process, starting with brain extraction. How do I mean, we are talking about 3,500 years ago. They knew the anatomy, the detailed anatomy. And one of these information is that the thinnest part on the skull at the base, it's called a cribriform plate of ethmoid in the nasal, in the roof of the nose. So they introduced just a metal bar, just crack it, just a very thin layer of bone, and then they flush the brain and pour liquid resin inside. This was the brain extraction. And then the organ evisceration. How it is done, as Dr. Selim just mentioned, it's through usually in the left flank, lower left flank, where they extracted and eviscerated all the organs, except in some cases, except in leaving the kidneys and the heart. It depends on the stage of this. Now, after organ evisceration, the process of dehydration, which is really the magic or the secret behind the mummification process, is dehydration. So how they achieve this dehydration process is just they packed the body with linen packs soaked with resin and natron salt. Salt, as we know, imbibes or take out the water from the tissues, meaning make it dry, very dry, so that it will not decay and not invite any organisms on it. So the dehydration process stays for up to 40 to 70 days. Then, after that, they got all the linen packs from the body. They rinse it with palm wine and some aromatic powders, and then restuff again with linen packs filled with resin and natron again. And after that, they anoint the body, the external surface of the body, with resin and with some material to clog the pores, the sweat pores, so that no organism can attack the skin. And this is really the reason or the magic of the mummification process. And finally, wrapping is done and also rinsed with glue or resin. This is actually like the glue. It sticks all the tissues together, and they put whatever they want to put through the wrappings. As Dr. Salima just mentioned, you can see how enormous the numbers of amulets and pieces into the mummy of King Tutankhamun. Unbelievable. I mean, amount of gold is really unbelievable. And this is a boy king, just lasted for 10 years in his reign. So what about the great kings that ruled Egypt for much longer? Of course, hid much of these damage. Anyhow, this is the picture that just Dr. Salima just showed us. And now we go to this. So this is the King Tut X-ray. And as have been mentioned before, and I don't find the pointer. Okay. Yes, we can see here, this is the skull. I'm talking now about the skull from the radiological aspect. These are the two layers of embalmment, and we hear Harrison as well pointed out there is a small loose bone inside, or bone. And they attributed this most probably due to a fracture in the skull. It might have fracture depressed meaning a separate bone just displaced inwards. And that was the last they did. And they presumed that the cause of death was because he received a blow to the head, which obviously later on turns out to be untrue. So, the Supreme Council of Antiquity in 2005, headed by Dr. Hawass, really launched a great project to scan the royal Egyptian mummies, starting with King Tut. It was a great incident, and I was among the team that examined first the King Tutankhamun. And I would like just to mention, to show you the names that have been the first team that examined King Tutankhamun. As you can see, there are some radiologists. We have a forensic medicine, and we have anatomists, and we have a foreign team, also an anatomist, as well as a forensic and a radiologist. Both teams were blinded to the results to each other. And I remember the press conference that before it immediately, Dr. Hawass invited all the members to share for the first time what they reached and to see the results, the final result. There was some debate, of course, but anyhow, we reached the definitive conclusion. And this is the team that I'm proud to be part of it. This team was later on, some new colleagues come and examine the King Tut pictures again, and Dr. Sahar with us. She was joining afterwards. And here, the nice picture of Dr. Zahi. I really wanted to ask him till now what he was looking at, what was in the brain of Dr. Zahi when he looked at this boy king at that time. We will ask him later on when the discussion. So this is the King Tut in his tomb. And this is the lifting, and Dr. Zahi here, of course, with his famous hat. And this is the mummy. As you can see, it's cut into pieces. Again, another view of the mummy. So, the results. As we can see here, it's very slender, soft tissue shrunken, embalming material dehiscent at many areas. And penis and right ear auricle previously were present in the initial pictures. These were missing since '68, but when we examined, we found these in the sand tray at King Tut CT scanning. From the measurement, as Dr. Kram just mentioned, that he was about 5 feet 6 inches or 5 feet 5 inches, whatever. It's just about 167 centimeter. The age, of course, we estimated the age because of, in any bone of the body, we have a growth plate where the bones will grow. And this is, we call it the epiphyseal plate. And these are usually closes at the age, from the age of 18 to the 21. So looking at the epiphyseal growth plates, we found that they're still there. So we suggest that they might have died at the age of 19. And also the wisdom teeth. We could find that one of them was fully erupted, and the rest of them were partially erupted. Of course, the mummy was found in very poor condition. Disarticulated, all the joints were disarticulated, and I will leave this maybe to my colleagues. We will discuss it in more details. Now, I'm talking about the skull now. We have an elongated skull, as we saw in the pictures, as I will be showing you later on. So, why do we say it elongated? In scientific way, this might be due, what we call it, dolichocephaly, maybe dolichocephaly, but anyhow, trying to get rid of this mic. Okay. So dolichocephaly, when we measure the length and the height of the skull, we didn't see anything that really confirms that he has a dolichocephalic skull in the medical meaning or scientific meaning, but it has elongated. And this was a part of the family traits that were in Tutankhamun. And also he has some of the nasal septum and the roof of the mouth has a small cleft, but without any external features, meaning he's had no hair lip. It's just a minor cleft in the palate. And root of brain embalmment, this is really exciting and interesting. There are many people have been discussing this issue, and the usual route, as I said before, it was transnasal, but in Tutankhamun we find another route. I'm really amazed how these people knew this anatomy a long time ago. It's just the suboccipital root, just from here. And we used to do some techniques recently till in the recent day, I mean radiology, we call it cisternal root. We puncture just the needle just under the occiput. We inject some contrast to outline the cervical spine, for example. And so we have this suboccipital root that I'm going to show you an evidence on that. Now, let's go back to the loose bones. And why I will concentrate on this, because this is really important. So, let's first see what's this? These are axial images. We take axial images like that, okay? So we're looking on the axial images. And this is the layer of embalmment at the top of the head, and this is at the bottom part of the skull. But look at these. You see these tiny little white spots? What are these? These are remnants of the bones that they fractured through the mummification process. But the idea here is that what? It is stuck within the embalmment material. And this is another axial, but at a lower down, where it shows the thick layer of resin, not only in the skull, but also around and inside the spine, as well as the oral in the mouth. This is what I'm showing you, the elongated skull, as we mentioned, and with the overbite, which is a really feature, what we call the tethmoid feature, that was all the family. Now, this is important. This is beautifully illustrates the root, the resin. Can you see here? This is the nose, and here where the root, where they fractured the skull base and put the resin inside. This is another picture showing what? Showing that, okay. Showing here the two layers of embalmment, and you can see there is a bit of a difference between the density, the grainish of the two layers, meaning that they have different emulsion or different types of embalming resin. Also, you can find here, this is the left and this is the left and this is the right side. It's a sagittal image, as if I'm looking from the side, not in the midline, but just off the midline on either side. So you can find here, there's no bones in here. Here we have a small piece of bone. See this? This is the posterior or the back part of the first cervical vertebra. Why it's not here? Why there is nothing here and it's there? That we proved later on. As you can see here also, this is a coronal, what we call it. You are looking now from the face. And we can see here, no bone here, and there is a bone there. I see it's empty, and there is a piece of bone there. So reconstruction with the computer work, we could demonstrate that this piece of bone actually confirmed and fit exactly with the missing part of the first cervical vertebra. And the teeth, we mentioned about the teeth. And yeah. Now, Dr. Hawass just yesterday spoke about the three teams that did reconstruction. All came out with different faces, features. And this means what? I don't trust that. I'm a scientist. How come three different groups came up with another totally different features? So it's just biased, as Dr. Ikram just mentioned. Okay. Anyhow, I think this was the French. Anyhow, as we mentioned earlier, the almost totally absent the anterior chest wall, abdominal wall, and pelvic wall. Many, many absent pieces of bones were there. And of course, this was not because of a hippo that bite. No, it was just because the golden mask to remove it is sticky. So they got all the anterior aspect together with the mask. And as you can see here, there is nothing. It's just the dead impact. Nothing. All is missing. And here the cut in the opposite the vertebra number 3 at the lumbar area. Now, a peculiar, we have many fractures, many disarticulations, but a peculiar one we noticed at the lower part of the left thigh bone. What was peculiar about it is that it has a thin layer, dense layer coating it. What does it mean? When we measured the density, it matches exactly with the resin density. So how on earth could resin come inside a bone coating the edges unless this was associated with a big wound on the thigh, what we call compound fracture. And a compound fracture could really kill anybody in the old days because of infection, where no antibiotics were available, something called fat embolism, which is common with such fractures in the thigh bone, and that might be what we suggested, that this might be the cause of his death. And we can see here there are many cracks in the soft tissues, and this is the fracture that I'm talking about. You see this dense area coating the fracture. This is a very common fracture at the teen ages, where I mean, supracondylar fracture, or a very common fracture. So we assumed that probably this might have been the cause of King Tut death. I think I will stop it here to welcome my colleagues and to welcome our next speaker. Thank you very much. And just before I call for the next speaker, remind you that at the end of the session, we will have an interactive session, willing to receive all questions, discussion, and I hope that we all participate in this discussion. And now I will call for Dr. Ashraf Selim. He's my colleague, and she is a professor and head of radiology department at Cairo University, and she has been specialized in the paleoradiography, and she is working with the Egyptian Royal Mummy Project of the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and also she has some books, but most of her books I like is her book Scanning the Pharaohs with Dr. Zahi, and please welcome Dr. Sahar with me. Thank you.